That's
that
exactly what he
worries
said.
me.
It
That
worries me as well.
that worries me because a third party candidate like Donald Trump will take most of his votes from the conservative side or from the independent side.
Right.
And so that will almost assure that we will end up with another Democrat in the White House in 2017. And that is repugnant to me in every way.
Yes. Because then it's taking my ball and going home. I'll just take my ball and go home, and I don't care what happens to the country as long as I get my votes.
Now, let's get back to the debate. I thought Ted Cruz did a good job during the debate.
I felt that Ted Cruz was too rehearsed. I was actually a little disturbed by Ted Cruz, and I like Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is one of my top three. But every hand gesture, every facial expression, every inflection of his voice was the exact same thing that I saw in Iowa at the Freedom Summit in January. So I kind of cocked my head to the side and went, this looks a little too rehearsed.
There were some people that I felt left the debate in worse shape than when they arrived.
Yes.
I felt like Rand Paul didn't do himself any favors during the debate.
Right. No, well, I agree.
But
I felt like.
But if we also look at too, the number of questions that were given to each candidate, I think even Ben Carson, jokingly said, "Oh, I didn't know if you're going to ask me another question or not." But now, what do you guys think how Florida Governor's Jeb Bush did?
See, he was going to be the next one I was going to say that I don't think did well. There were two or three questions. There were 2 or 3 questions that he was asked that he's been asked before, and he still hadn't come up with a really resounding
cogent answer. Yeah,
and so I don't think I think he left that debate in worse shape than when he arrived at that debate.
Right.
I agree. I agree. Common Core was 1.
Exactly.
The Iraq War was 2.
Yes. Iran, the Iran issue.
And the Iran issue.
Right.
All 3 of those questions were he really, felt like he sort of, I won't say he stumbled, but he just did not seem to be as clear as I hoped he would be.
Well, and especially with Common Core, it was actually surprised. I was actually surprised to hear him actually come out against it because for so long he's been for it. I mean,
that's the first time I've ever heard him say anything against it.
That was an absolute flip.
Yeah, I mean, Florida has Common Core. I mean,
because of him.
Yeah, exactly. So for him coming out, complete flip. I mean, like really.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't think that John Kasich did a good job. I
didn't either. He got a huge amount of audience support, but it was held in Cleveland.
That's right. That's exactly right.
It's his home state.
I actually think that Carly Fiorina should have been in his spot.
I did as well. And I don't know whether he got the sympathy vote because it was his state or whether she really did not poll as well as he did. But I did not feel that she should have. I did not feel he should have gotten that slot. I felt she should have.
I highly he's just entered the race, and I highly question that truly he has more support than Carly Fiorina. I like Governor Kasich. I like him, but he doesn't appear to me to be a true conservative.
What did you think of Governor? For Pete's sake, Steve, Virginia's former governor.
Huckabee?
Who?
Virginia's former governor.
Are you talking about Huckabee?
No. That's Arkansas.
Huckabee was from Arkansas.
Okay.
The one who was the head of, who was a former intelligence officer, Army intelligence officer, and worked in, what is his name? He was in the first tier, and he gave some really good answers. He just came into the race like week before last.
I'm not sure I know who you're talking about, which ought to tell you how I feel about him. Uh,
So he was
uh,
forgettable. You're saying he was forgettable.
I,
Wonderful answer.
I would say that my problem with the first debate was I didn't get to hear most of it. I only got to hear bits and pieces of the first debate,
Oh,
and
that's right.
actually they being down in Guyana, I couldn't get I couldn't get the Fox News channel. They won't allow me to sign on to my cable provider. And when I try to listen on other venues, it says, sorry, this is only available in the continental U.S. And so I wasn't able to listen. Well, then they started saying that it was going to be on Fox News Radio. And so I went to Fox News Radio and they were playing Alan Combs. And he was listening to bits and pieces of the first debate, but almost with every sentence that was said, he would make some snide remark.
Gilmore.
Gilmore, yeah. Uh, Not overly impressed. Like I said, I didn't hear much of the first debate and was having to listen to it through the comments of Alan Combs, which really angered me. And he made the comment. One of his producers said, "You know, you're getting a lot of notes from people who hate the comments that you're making." And he said, "Well, I don't care. This is the Alan Combs show. People tune in to listen to me." Well, actually, I didn't tune in to listen to him. I was told on advertisements on Fox News Radio that they were going to feature the first and second debate on Fox News Radio. And so I went there to listen to it and ended up listening to Alan Combs. Now, I found out toward the end of the Alan Combs show and the end of that first debate, I found out that they had a second feed for Fox News Radio, and that's where I went to listen to the second debate and the top tier debate. I wish I'd been able to do that during the first tier because I missed most of that and haven't been able to go back and listen to it. So that was very disappointing not to be able to hear everyone there because there are some people in that lower tier that I think still ought to be listened to.
Mm-hmm.
Carly Fiorina was one. Rick Perry, although I don't think he fared well during the debate.
He didn't. He came across as angry to me. And I like Rick Perry. I think he did some absolutely amazing things in Texas as governor of Texas. And he tried very hard to talk about his record. But instead of sounding self-assured and prepared to lead, he sounded defensive, I thought.
Well, on top of that, there were other people that were there. Rick Santorum was there, and I wish he'd just give up
Yeah.
on his quest to be the president because I don't think it's ever going to happen. Lindsey
Well,
Graham was there, and Lindsey Graham,
irritates me.
yes, he does me too. He aggravates me because he often doesn't hold to the core values of the Republican Party, which surprises me
Right.
because he talks like he does, but
Mm-hmm.
then when a vote comes up, he ends up siding with the people across the aisle, and I'm going, "What are you doing, man?"
Right.
Um, so
If you're going to
so I
talk the
don't know.
talk, walk the walk.
Now there was an interesting thing that I did notice. Some of the people that were successful, Rubio,
Mm-hmm.
um, Fiorina, really made a conscious effort to move to the right.
Well, now that's one of our sources tonight said that. I pulled both articles from the Atlantic and from the Washington Post. And the Washington Post said this as the campaign heats up, Republican candidates are rushing to the right.
Well,
So that's exactly
I
what they said.
I actually hope that in fact happens.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, people say people now. Let me make sure I qualify what I'm about to say. When I say people say conservative conservative voters say, "Where is Ronald Reagan when you need him?"
Right.
But the last several times that we've had people, in fact, since Ronald Reagan, we have had Republicans, even Republican presidents, who have moved sharply to the center.
To the center. Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, during the Bob Dole
Debacle.
Bill Clinton race, as I watched that, Bob Dole was doing his dead level best to sound like a Democrat.
Yes, a blue dog Democrat.
And remarkably enough, Bill Clinton was doing his dead level best to sound like a Republican.
Yeah,
and I thought,
that's right.
This is nuts. They're both.
Well, they were courting everybody else, but their own people.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so I would love to see a true conservative candidate. I liked Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney was a moderate Republican. I believed with all my heart, and will go to my dying day believing, that America really lost out when we didn't elect him at that time, because at that time he was hands down the better choice for America.
Absolutely.
But regardless of that, he was still a moderate, and many of the base in the Republican Party wouldn't vote for him.
Right.
Because he was a moderate. When John McCain ran, I had to hold my nose when I voted for him.
Oh, we all did. All of us did. I think that that voted Republican that time had to walk in there and hold our noses and pull that lever, because every one of us knew that John McCain was not a conservative, has never been a conservative, will never be a conservative, and he can paint himself red all day long, but he's never going to be a conservative.
Well, that's exactly right, and unfortunately, that was my problem with John McCain.
But the alternative was Barack Obama.
Well, that's right. That's exactly right. Even George H.W. Bush was more of a moderate than Clinton. I mean, than Reagan. The most conservative since Reagan, in my view, was George W. Bush.
Absolutely.
And he was not a total conservative in a lot of ways. And although I liked him, and that's not a popular thing to say, but I liked him, and I thought he was who America needed at the time. After 9/11 occurred, I think he was the man for that moment.
I'll tell you what I appreciated about George W. Bush. George W. Bush loves this country, and he loved our troops.
Yep.
I will always respect that man for those two traits. He loved this country, and he loved our troops.
Yep, you're right. Well, we're going to have to take our final break. Coming up after that break, Hillary Clinton may be looking for a Caribbean hideaway after her very bad week. And who could be jumping into the Democratic race for presidency? Say it ain't so, Joe. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Now, one side in this campaign has been telling us that the issues of this election are the maintenance of peace and prosperity. The line has been used, we've never had it so good.
I won't have to worry about putting gas in my car. I won't have to worry about paying my mortgage. You know, if I help him, he's going to help me.
But I have an uncomfortable feeling that this prosperity isn't something on which we can base our hopes for the future.
The key point I'm making right now is that the economy is moving in a positive direction.
And yet our government continues to spend $17 million a day more than the government takes in.
You're telling me we got to go spend money to keep from going bankrupt? The answer, yes, I'm telling you.
We've raised our debt limit 3 times in the last 12 months. And now our national debt is 1.5 times bigger than all the combined debts of all the nations of the world.
We're going to raise the debt limit. We always have. We will do it again.
We have $15 billion in gold in our treasury. We don't own an ounce.
I have been informed that the majority plans to block consideration of this amendment, which is number 1367, regarding the transparency at the Federal Reserve.
Foreign dollar claims are $27.3 billion.
It said that China has now surpassed Japan as the U.S. government's largest creditor, owning at least 10% of all U.S. debt, perhaps as